My name's Chris Scott. I work for Outdoor Recreation Northern Ireland, and along with my colleagues Jane and Elizabeth, I provide the Secretariat services for the Visitor Safety Group. So you're all very welcome along to this webinar, the latest in a series that we've provided over the last number of months. Just a quick note before we start to folks more in housekeeping, just to protect the sort of bandwidth for the presenters and the presentations and so on, and to allow you relax in your office or spare bedroom, wherever you may be. If you wouldn't mind just turning off your cameras and muting yourself, you'll still be able to see everything that's going on. It just means it'll not take up too much of the broadband. So if you're just joining us, please just take a moment there to turn off your camera and turn off your microphone. Of course, you'll be more than welcome to turn those back on once we get to the breakout rooms later. That's great. Thanks very much. So as I said, this is the latest in our series. This webinar, as all others, will be recorded or is being recorded. So it'll be available afterwards. We'll share that via eZine and via the VSG website. So you can sit back, relax, and enjoy, and not have to worry about furiously taking notes. And indeed, you'll be able to share it with colleagues and so on as well. You obviously can ask questions during this is just a standard Teams meeting, so you can ask questions during the webinar to the presenters. If you would just say who the question is for, so put their name first, or question for Jeanette, or question for Imogen, and we'll endeavour to either answer those during the webinar, or there's a brief Q&A session before we go to breakout rooms, or indeed in the breakout rooms. So. But likewise, it's not just for the presenters to answer the questions. We obviously appreciate there's a huge amount of expertise within the visitor safety group amongst the delegates as well. So if you feel you can add value to some of the questions, please don't hesitate to jump in and add some value and add an answer to that via the chat. We're delighted to have just over 80 people registered for this webinar, which is great, particularly as things are getting incredibly busy. We have about 15 or so delegates who are very welcome. They're non-VSG members, but from various outdoor swimming organisations, clubs, societies, etc. So it's great to have them on board, particularly for this topic, and they'll add great value to events. So we'll just move on to the running order there, please, Elizabeth. Today launches the new VSG Open Water Swimming Access Guidance, and VSG board member Jeanette Roberts is going to talk to us a little bit about that. There's been a lot of good work going on in the last number of weeks from Ken Dodd, VSG chair, Jake Williams, a previous VSG board member from Angling Water, and indeed many of the speakers and others have contributed to the development of that guidance. It really aligns to the sort of collegiate approach of the visitor safety group, that many wise minds can contribute to these pieces. And of course, that's now available on the VSG website. Don't go there just yet. Listen to the webinar first, but you'll be able to get that on the VSG website. And of course, in the nature of visitor safety, the nature of an activity like open water swimming, that will become a dynamic piece that will be obviously reflected in learnings and updated as we go forward. But a really good start point. So after Jeanette speaks, I'm going to hand over to Will Kirstein from Anglican Water. Then we're delighted to be joined by Imogen Radford from the Open Outdoor Swimming Society, and then finally Caroline McAvoy will present from ROSPA. So listen, without further ado, I'm going to pass on to Jeanette. Are you with us okay, Jeanette?
I'm here, Chris. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly. That's great. We'll get you up on screen. You haven't got any slides yet. You're just going to talk to us, which is great. So I'll pass over to you. If everybody else can remember, just if they're coming in, if you wouldn't mind just turning off your camera and turning off your microphone, and we'll give Jeanette the full screen. Okay, over to you, Jeanette.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's really great to see so many people attending this webinar. As Chris has said, I'm the head of health and safety with Scottish Canals. So we as an organisation look after Scotland's 5 canals, which includes 19 reservoirs, and they're located in the central belt of Scotland through to the more remote areas of western and northern Scotland. Open water swimming has obviously become a really hot topic. It's a very current topic, and it's great that we've kind of got this webinar to actually discuss this and the challenges, I suppose, that it brings for landowners who have this duty to manage visitor safety within their ownership. We have got some really good, interesting presentations, as Chris has mentioned, for you to listen to today, and then obviously further discussion within the breakout rooms. But I just wanted to give you a bit of a scene setter in terms of why we thought this guidance was needed. So certainly within Scottish Canals, we have seen a massive increase in people wanting to access the water, be it in the more traditional activities, so the likes of canoeing and kayaking, which we actively promote on our canals, to the newer types of activity, which include open water swimming and paddle boarding. And because they're new, there's an element of uncertainty around them as well. So we have obviously been interested in why has there been this increase in swimming, and other talk presentations later on will go into this a bit more, but certainly COVID has had an impact. We have seen a massive increase in people accessing the water through lockdown periods, but also as people have come out of the lockdown. The reason for that is, I suppose, there's a lot of people who enjoy swimming, but traditionally have enjoyed swimming in swimming pools. Those pools have been closed, so people have been looking for the sort of alternatives as to where they can actually still go and get the enjoyment of swimming, the fitness benefits, etc. There's also been this reconnection with nature, I suppose, through lockdown and obviously through the restrictions that we're still living under. So people have reconnected, they've gone outdoors, and they're seeing these spaces and wanting to engage with them. And equally, we're also being encouraged to spend more time outdoors rather than indoors with our families and friends. And I suppose swimming is an easily accessible, low-cost outdoor activity for people. It can be enjoyed by people of all ages. We've got people who've probably been swimming for a long time, and that's what they did as a kid, and they've grown up doing it. And then we've got younger people who are coming into this. It's something they can do to enjoy with their friends and family. So we've got people who can swim individually, we can swim in groups, we can swim in families. And I suppose the other reason for me is that there's been this huge, widespread media coverage of the health benefits of swimming outdoors. So whether that's people accessing the open water to sort of reconnect with the blue-green space, as it's being termed, so being in the big blue, but then surrounded by the greenness of the vegetation, or whether it's the health benefits of actually submerging yourself in cold water and the connections with the mental health benefits. So I think they're kind of the fundamental reasons why people are starting to engage in open water swimming. And I think for anyone who is seeing this on their land or on their properties, you'll recognise that these swimmers come in a whole range of guises. So as I've said, we've got some people who are competent outdoor swimmers. So these are the people who've been swimming outdoors for years, decades in some places. They know where to swim, they know where it's safe. They were kind of doing it before it became on trend. I classify myself as one of those people. I've been swimming outdoors for a number of years, just short of 10 years. And I am seeing a massive increase in people coming and swimming at what I call my swimming spots. And there's a frustration that goes with that. You've also got the competent pool swimmer. So someone who's a very competent swimmer who hasn't been able to access their swimming pool. So they've been venturing into the open water to still get that enjoyment of the swimming. So they might be just going for the leisure activity, or it may be to try something different, or to train for an event as well. There is also the novice open water swimming, and I suppose this is the one that maybe concerns us. So they've got minimal experience, or previous experience of us swimming outdoor, not necessarily aware of the risks involved, but are kind of engaging possibly with some of these competent outdoor swimmers. The other group who I love to sit and watch, the sociable bobble hat bobbers, as I call them. They're the ones who like to go into the water with their friends, generally with a bobble hat, certainly in Scotland, because I guess the water's a little bit colder up here, but they'll go in and they'll stay very close to the shore. They'll just bob around and they'll have a good old chat and a laugh with their friends while they're in the water. We've then got the summer swimmers who are taking to the water to cool down. Again, people from all sorts of different age brackets there. We've got the winter swimmers. So they're the ones who are going into the water, regardless of the temperature, the weather condition, etc., to experience that cold water high that they talk about. And then finally, and I suppose this is the one we fear the most as landowners and people with responsibility for visitor safety, is the swimmer who doesn't know what they don't know. So yeah, they find themselves at the water. It's a hot day possibly, and they go in and they're not actually aware of the risks involved in going into that water. So this new type of visitor presents a real challenge to organisations when we've got responsibilities under the Health and Safety at Work Act, especially when you consider it against the kind of the media grabbing headlines when someone dies while swimming either at the coast or in inland waters. So it's not surprising that organisations with, I suppose, a low corporate tolerance for risk switch to the default position of prohibiting swimming on their land. So that is an understandable response, and that is what we're seeing with a number of organisations where this situation occurs. But unfortunately, this position isn't sustainable as a number of people seeking access to natural water continues to increase. So there's already increasing pressure on landowners to allow swimmers to access their land to take part in swimming. And these stories hit the media, and they potentially are equally damaging to an organisation's reputation as a death or an incident on their site. So it's for all these reasons that the Visitor Safety Group has developed this new piece of guidance. It touches on the well-established risk control spectrum, which is in the VSG guidance within the guiding principles, and we're intending that it will help landowners determine the level of management intervention that they will need a required body of water. So it looks at the general level of visitor use. It looks at the type of swimmer. It talks about the location and the terrain, and considers kind of the skill, self-reliance, personal responsibility, terms that you'll all be aware of and familiar with from the traditional VSG guidance. So we believe that the guidance is appropriate for all types of water bodies, be they in city centres or in the remote highlands of Scotland. The guidance considers the different forms of access pathways in the UK. It includes some case studies. It considers the legal position and then provides links to other organisations and documents that are available on this topic. So it's kind of trying to capture the key messages, but also signpost people. So we therefore believe it's going to be really useful to any organisation or a landowner who's tackling this new risk within their business. So at this point, I'm going to hand back to Chris to allow him to kind of feed on to the next presenters, and I'll maybe see some of you in the breakout room later. So I hope you find the rest of the morning really beneficial. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Jeanette. A really useful kickoff there, giving a great overview of the various segments and types of swimmer within one area, quite diverse, really, and really good to frame that in terms of linking it to visitor safety and indeed the visitor safety group principles. So a really good kickoff, and nice to see those wetsuits strategically placed in the background as well. So yeah, so well done.
Those wetsuits that I never wear. Once upon a time I used to wear them. I don't anymore.
Hopefully you'll get a chance over the summer. So thank you very much for that start. So we're going to pass on now. So Jeanette and indeed then Will Kirstein, our next presenter. Are you with us okay there, Will?
I am indeed, Chris. Yep, thanks very much.
Good. No, we can hear you loud and clear. That's great. If you want to start queuing up your slides there, Will. Will is a park manager from Anglican Water, and again has been involved in developing the open water swimming access guidance, and he's going to talk a little bit about the content and the principles of that for us today. So Will, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks very much. Right, morning everybody, and thanks very much for having me. I hope you can all see that. I will give it a couple of seconds just so that my screen loads. Chris, perhaps you could just give me a nod and let me know if you can see it.
We can see that perfectly well. Yeah.
Excellent, brilliant, thank you. So I'm just going to talk a little bit through the guidance. I'm not going to read it out word for word because it's there for you all to see now, and you'll all be able to do that. But I just wanted to sort of give a sort of high level overview, if you like, or a flavour for what's in it, and just chuck some thoughts out there for you all to think about when you consider how you are managing access to open water. Now, I'm going to caveat this or start this presentation by saying this is guidance. This isn't a set of rules. Jeanette has already sort of touched on it's up to individual organisations to decide on your appetite, your corporate appetite for risk, as to whether you would like to accept the risk of people swimming in open water or not, or it's up for you to decide whether the location is simply appropriate for swimming. And it might be inappropriate because it might be a dangerous operational site if it's a reservoir, be that because it's got hidden machinery underneath the water or steep concrete sides that make it difficult to get out of. It might be inappropriate for people to swim there because it's a nature reserve and actually, it's about protecting and maintaining wildlife and biodiversity in that particular water body. So there are a host of reasons as to why it may or may not be appropriate for people to use that piece of water, and there's a host of organisational reasons as to why your organisation may or may not consider it appropriate for people to swim. There isn't a right or wrong answer on that. That is for you as an organisation to go away and decide, I'm afraid. So we're just going to have a little look and touch on the growing appetite for access. Again, Jeanette's spoken about that. It's worth us, I think, considering what actually is open water. What are we talking about? And again, what do we consider swimming? And it will be interesting. I know some of you are in a breakout room later. We can perhaps talk about that a bit later on. Why do we need the guidance? How risky is it? We'll have a look at the sort of legal drivers that may result in prosecution, trend towards or away from prosecution. And then we'll look at the pathways and how we can manage those pathways. And I'll share some links at the end of the slide for organisations that you might want to look at if they are relevant to you. So again, picking up from what Jeanette has said, there is a growing appetite for access to the water in open water swimming. I did a quick Google search when I was putting this presentation together, and put open water swimming and clicked on Google News, and I think the Linford Christie article is something that made the Independent, within the last week. So not only is there a driver from members of the public, for all the reasons Jeanette spoke about, it's also extremely topical at the moment on TV, in the press, for a whole host of reasons. So what we can't deny and shouldn't fight against is people want access to water. They want access to green space, and that whole almost rewilding, if you like, or reconnecting with nature is something that actually, as landowners, for quite a long time we've been saying, people aren't respectful for the natural environment or whatever, and it's been something that perhaps we've thought is a bit disappointing. Well, we're now seeing people re-engaging with the natural environment. Part of that natural environment is water, and people are re-engaging with it, and it is often in large-scale publications. So the three examples there: BBC Travel, the Independent, and the Daily Mirror. That's a host of publications covering a large range of sort of readership, if you like, or news, news readers in the UK. So it's forefront of people's minds. Water access is forefront of people's minds. What is water access? What are we actually talking about here? What is open water? Anything from an upland highland lake through to a canal, through to a beach, a reservoir, a pond, a river. It could be a stream. Really, we're talking about anything that isn't a swimming pool. Typically, people sort of associate open water with wild spaces. An upland lake or a reservoir, which feels very wild, or a beach. But it doesn't necessarily have to be. It could be a canal in a town centre. It could be the pond in the local park. If you're a local authority managing a pond in the local park, it could literally be, any body of water, large or small, that people are going into. And then I think for me, the other question that we need to ask ourselves is actually, what do we consider swimming? So never mind your experienced swimmers or your non-experienced swimmers. Just think back to your own properties and think, what do you see on an average hot day? What is it that you're trying to manage? So just some examples, what is swimming? So yeah, again, a lot of the media focuses around open water swimming, which is your your competent swimmer, if you like, swimming across the middle of the reservoir there with their swimming goggles on. I know certainly from our perspective, we would consider the family of people wading knee deep in the river as swimming. And, you know, are they? Is that an activity that we should manage? It's certainly open water access if we have a look at the river there. And again, I think from a landowner's perspective, actually probably the vast majority of what we see, certainly in terms of volume of people going into the water, is the three pictures over on the left-hand side of that slide. You know, even if you look at a busy Bournemouth beach there, the vast majority of people are wading in up to their sort of hips, if you like, and trying to cool down. So, and I think if you spoke to those people, they would all consider that they had been for a swim and had a great day out. So it's just worth considering, and just be open-minded, I guess, to the term swimming. I think really here we're talking about water access. Try not get too bogged down with swimming means somebody's going to swim across your lake, your river, your reservoir. Again, it may or may not be appropriate for you to allow that, but just think about water access generally as a rule. And think about, you know, if you are thinking of providing, what is it that you're actually looking to provide? What sort of level of access are you looking to provide? Or what is it that you're trying to stop people doing if that's where you are? So, sorry, excuse me, we've jumped on, there we go. So just how risky is it? Well, we know that open water swimming is increasing in popularity. There are roughly about 100,000 swimmers, people who would class themselves as regular open water swimmers every week. That was taken from the Active Line survey back in 2017, which was done with Sport England. So that would have now certainly increased. 2.1 million people are classing themselves as open water swimmers nowadays, and that is recent data from 2020. So there's a lot of people swimming. Again, if we look at the recent data in terms of, and when I'm using swimmers with inverted commas here, I'm talking about a lot of people accessing open water. 631 recorded water deaths. That's data from the National Water Safety Forum from 2020. So that's about as up to date as we can get. And I've just broken those down there. You can see of those 631 recorded water deaths in the UK, 242 were accidents. Okay, fine, 130, there wasn't a recorded reason, so it might have been accidental, might not have been. I guess what's noteworthy is of 103 of those 242 suspected accidents were people who had no intention of no intention of going into the water. And actually, if you break down the stats, these are all freely available for you on the National Water Safety Forum website. It's worth looking at. You know, most of the people who unfortunately lost their lives in water-related incidents were actually running or walking and have fallen in. So, you know, those are the accident stats. They are relatively low. It is a relatively low risk activity. However, again, as Jeanette alluded to, it is headline grabbing, and certainly in the UK press likes to publicise drowning related deaths, rightly or wrongly, and it will certainly make front page news if you are unfortunate enough to suffer a fatality on your sites. The question here is, how risky is it? And I guess proportionately probably not that risky. Landowners do have a duty. Again, Jeanette has alluded to that, and ROSPA have produced an excellent document. The guidance links to it. It's worth reading. The document does recognise that landowners have a duty to look after their visitors, but increasingly, I think it's fair to say that there is also an expectation on the visitors to look after themselves. So it isn't entirely down to the landowner to manage. So again, this is in the document. What sort of trends towards investigation and what trends away from it? Again, if we're managing our organisational risk here. And this is just helpful just to understand how you might want to manage swimming. So, yeah, not definitive, but some good guidance here. Tending away from investigation, there was no duty, you know, or it was a natural. There's no duty holder, or it's just a natural feature. So something like a beach or an upland lake where public have open access to. If swimming was not encouraged or it was actively discouraged, so that might be sort of leaning towards your wild swimming models if you're doing it. These sort of things will tend away from away from prosecution. Tending towards would be where there's a very clear, definitive duty by the landowner. So are we actively encouraging swimming? Are we using it for commercial gain? Are we putting members of staff at risk? Is there a hazard that you know about that you're not managing, a weir or whatever it might be? So it's all fairly standard stuff, actually, when you think about it. It's not really different to managing your land holdings. What are you going to get prosecuted because someone fell over a track, or have you managed that track in an appropriate manner, I guess? And it's the same with your water bodies. Have you managed that water body in an appropriate manner for your land holding? So if we just move on to having a look at the various pathways, and then we'll have a talk about how you might want to consider managing those pathways to A, protect your visitors, and B, protect your organisations. So we're recognising 4 pathways that people could end up in the water. Okay, so these are the ways in which visitors might find themselves in your water body, whatever that might be. So you've got your unauthorised access. So this is clear. Swimming's not permitted. You're not allowed to be there. It's clearly notified to a visitor that they shouldn't be swimming there for whatever reason. It's dangerous, it's a nature reserve, whatever it might be. And again, if we think back to the VSG risk matrix, the level of intervention that you put on that could vary. It could vary from a sign, or it could vary to fences or whatever else. So it could be minimal or it could be advanced, depending on your specific situation. However, if someone's swimming there, they clearly shouldn't be there. You've then got what we're calling unmanaged access, which would, I guess, typically or generally be classed as wild swimming, if you like. So your wild swimming is where a landowner really doesn't forbid swimming or accepts that swimming's taking place, but there's very minimal intervention to do this, to manage it. So this is a good example of this would be in the Lake District, upland lakes, or in the peaks or natural rivers where people are swimming and the landowner knows they're swimming, but it's all it's not encouraged. It just sort of happens. Over in Scotland, we've got responsible access, which similar to unmanaged access, but really under Scottish access legislation, people have a right of access to open water for recreation. So we're encouraging people up in Scotland to use the water responsibly and act responsibly. If possible, landowners should be indicating, where people can best gain access to a river or loch and helping guide them in their decision-making forums. And again, I've put a link to on the end of the slides to this because I actually thought this was really good, and it's worth looking at. So very similar to unmanaged access in a way, but specific to Scotland because in Scotland there is a right to open water for recreation. But again, we're not saying you have to manage it intensely. And then the final one is the managed access. So this might be commercial or uncommercial, but ultimately the key driver here is that you are either promoting or encouraging access. So you are telling people, you can swim here, and you're doing something to manage it. And again, your level of intervention would depend on the individual risk profile of that site. Whether you're doing it for commercial gain, whether you're doing it because you know people have always swum there, whatever those reasons might be, but ultimately you're managing it in some way, shape or form, and it's a recognised area that people swim. Again, there's some really good examples of this, both on a sort of more commercial end, which is I've used the Rutland water model because it's fresh in my mind. And there's Frensham Great Pond, which is another really good example that you can look at where there's sort of managed access, but with minimal intervention. So those are the sort of 4 ways that you might encounter water access. If we just look a little bit more in detail as to what that management might look like. Again, this is all laid out in the guidance. The the sort of flow diagrams and stuff are in there along with background information. I just didn't want to, we've got 15 minutes today, so I didn't want to go too crazy on it. So ultimately, like we said at the start, the landowner needs to consider their corporate appetite for risk, and he's just starting with a simple yes/no question. Are we going to allow people into this water, yes or no? If it's a no, that's fine. You then just need to implement your controls. You need to tell people that the ROSPA document is quite clear. If people aren't allowed to swim, you should be notifying that they shouldn't be swimming. The level at which you do this is, again, entirely based on your risk assessment and the amount of people that are swimming and what is practical. No right or wrong. So, a nature reserve in a rural location with screened hides and water access, no history of swimming, you might not see any intervention really. It's just the staff would go along and say, sorry guys, can you get out? You're not allowed to swim here. You might make reference to it on a website or something. A city centre reservoir with regular incidents of swimming, you might see fences, you might see signs, there might be security on site, anything like that. So the level of intervention just depends on where you are. Are we going to permit water access? Increasingly, there's going to be more pressure for it. I think the next question then is to ask yourself, are you going to promote it? So are you going to promote that there's water access on your site? Or is it for commercial gain? Or are you just going to accept that it happens? And if you're just going to accept that it happens, then ultimately, I guess you're sort of allowing wild swimming, you're promoting responsible, you're promoting the responsible access, the sort of Scotland model, if you like. And really then it's just about advising users of their risks. And again, the level of that you might do will depend on your visitor numbers, your visitor profiles, that sort of stuff. There's some really good examples there from the Lake District, and again from Church Stretton Reservoir. The links are later down, and the case studies are in the guidance. Really worth looking at, because that will help. If you're then walking down the route that says, okay, yeah, we're going to allow water access and we're going to promote it, or this is for commercial gain, then clearly your level of management needs to be upping, because in a way you're sort of now starting to provide a service or an activity, and it's reasonable to expect that you're going to get novice users and more users. So clearly your level of risk management needs to then increase. So you might move into designated swim zones. You might just be saying, okay, we're going to allow club swims to happen. We're going to allow open water triathlons to happen. We're going to allow some kind of experience activities to happen, whatever that might be. I don't know, diving or aqua parks, or floating on your back and looking at the stars, which seems to be a new thing that's suddenly very popular this year as well. So it's then just about managing those activities appropriately. And actually, from an activities point of view, it's quite easy. If you're thinking about doing club swims, take your advice from British Triathlon, enlist in an accreditation scheme like Go Beyond Swim or NOCA, something like that, and that will help you put great risk management practices in place. Again, if you're deciding to allow triathlons, Triathlon England, Triathlon Scotland, Triathlon Wales, the national governing bodies have everything that you need to know to how to deliver that safely, and it's very clear and very easy to follow. And again, if you're doing experience activities, there might not be national governing body advice there, but you will be able to, draw on the experience of some of the other national governing bodies in terms of things like water temperature and that sort of stuff if you need to. So I guess what I'm saying is look for your national governing body guidance and follow that. And if you are following that guidance and you're managing your staff or the delivery of the operator appropriately, and you're doing everything you can do, then you are discharging your liabilities or your responsibilities correctly. You might decide, no, I don't want to do club swims. What we want to do, and if I just go back, sorry, is make access for all these people who are wading in the water here and, just wanting to cool off on a sunny day, and I want to make something available to them. You might then go down the route of like a designated swim zone, or an area in your water body that you're going to encourage people to swim in. And really, if you're doing that, you need to be making sure that you're risk assessing the site appropriately. And then again, your level of intervention could be signage and making visitors aware of the risk, through to putting lifeguards there to sort of control them, to manage them on a day-to-day basis. And again, that will depend on, you know, your appetite for risk and the individual user profile of the site. So, and again, there's some really good examples there that you can look at. So you've got Frensham Great Pond, which is a non-lifeguarded model where people are allowed to swim and users are just made aware of the risks by signage, through to Rutland Water, and now Grafham Water, where I am today, where we provide lifeguarded swim services, basically, or lifeguarded swimming. Remember, ultimately, and I know this is the old one, but it showed up better on the slide, the information's the same. Just remember your risk control matrix for like you would manage your land holding. You know, it is directly applicable to open water swimming or open water access in terms of your level of interventions and your level of controls. It really is. And I think we're all quite familiar with zoning sites, land sites. So, you know, if you think back to how you might manage your trees, you'd probably have a zoning map in place, your high risk trees, your low risk trees. It's perfectly acceptable, or you know, it's good, in fact, to zone your waterways. There will be parts of your waterways where people swim more regularly than others, just because they're more accessible than others. So when you're doing your risk controls, remember that zoning approach, and remember to follow the VSCG matrix on risk controls, really, because it is relevant to this example. Finally, I think the slides are going to be shared with everybody. There are some really good examples out there. I'm not going to spend time dwelling on them now. You can pick the ones that are relevant to you. If you're interested in sort of following that wild swimming model, have a look at the Lake District and how it's sort of managed up there. You know, it's great. It's proactive. Again, responsible access up in Scotland, Scottish Canals have got some very good information on their website, and I'm sure Jeanette would be delighted to sort of talk to you about how they manage that. And again, if you're going down the managed access route, so you've got Frensham Great Pond, which is a brilliant example of minimal intervention, and we've got Rutland Water and Grafham Water, where there's sort of advanced levels of intervention. Ultimately, I think the takeaways to remember: access demand or pressure for access is going to increase. That is going to happen. That's what's been happening over the last couple of years. The public are certainly moving to a position where it's expected, and I think the courts are moving to a position where actually it is accepted that it's not just the landowner's responsibility to keep visitors safe. So whilst it's a terrible position to be in, I guess the organisational risks, should something terrible happen, are lessening, as long as you follow a host of great advice out there, of which, of course, this guidance is also one of them. Chris, I think that's about it for me for now, and obviously we'll take questions later on.
That's great. Well, thank you very much indeed. A really comprehensive overview there of the fundamentals of the guidance. So thank you very much for that. As I said, there's we'll have opportunity for questions at the end after all the presenters, and indeed further conversation within the breakout room. So that's great. So if you just want to stop sharing your screen there, we'll get Imogen queued up then. So we're delighted to have Imogen Radford, who's the Inland Access Officer, apologies, from the Open Water Swimming Society. And Imogen is going to talk to us today about the Outdoor Swimmers Code and swimming without a trace. So hi Imogen, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. We can hear you loud and clear. So if you want to just take a moment there to queue up your slides, great. Perfect. We can see those really well. So I'm gonna pass over to you, and you have 15 minutes or so.
Okay, thanks very much. So my name's Imogen Radford, as you know, from the Outdoor Swimming Society. I'm one of the Inland Access Officers there. So the Outdoor Swimming Society, OSS for short, has had a massive increase in members. Like everybody, we've seen a lot more swimmers. We went over the last 15 years from 300 members up to 100,000, and we get 500,000 visitors to our website every year, and everywhere has seen that massive increase in swimmers. we've got a website with lots of information on it, and that's one of the ways in which we give information to all swimmers, but perhaps particularly important for new swimmers who get in touch with us wanting to, understand particularly safety. That's the biggest question, but other issues as well. We use, as I say, the website. We've got a large, well, enormous actually, Facebook group. I can't remember, I think it's about 80,000 members. We've got various other social media presence and local channels, particularly local swim groups. Every area will have a little swim group of bringing together people informally in that area. So we try to reach as widely as we possibly can. We particularly want to reach new visitors and new swimmers. And I think we could probably widen that even further, working together with VSG and landowners, either locally or nationally. And I think we all want the same thing, responsible swimming. And I like the way that Will described a whole range of swimmers. I don't need to go into any detail on that because everybody's already talked about that, and Jeanette as well. And all of them matter. But this is an example here of our top summer piece of information. It's 10 top tips for keeping yourself safe. It's very accessible for anybody. So swimmers get a lot of benefits. Again, I don't need to do that because other people have talked about that, and it's very much talked about. And they appreciate having access to do that, and they want to be responsible. Almost all swimmers, well, I'd say virtually all swimmers want to be responsible. They want to understand the land manager's concerns, and they want to respect that, and they want to respect the places where they swim. So we've had an outdoor swimmers code for many years, but we've recently sort of revamped it and tried to make it as relevant as we can and as clear. It's got three main parts: taking responsibility for your own safety, considering others, and respecting the environment. I'll just go through those briefly. So taking responsibility for your own safety is absolutely fundamental to swimming, wild swimming, and actually any swimming. And that applies whether you swim alone, when you might take some extra measures to make sure you're safe, with others, when peer pressure can be an issue. And you need to do that even when you're at a supervised swim. You've still got a responsibility for yourself. So the basic principle is that everybody swims at their own risk, and no one else is liable in most circumstances. But that's the attitude we want to foster and encourage, is that you don't put your safety in somebody else's hands, it's in your own hands. The only exception to that, of course, is if you've got any children or vulnerable people in your charge, in which case you obviously have a responsibility for them. Another part of taking that responsibility is to do some learn about safe swimming. And there's numerous sources out there, and obviously the Outdoor Swimming Society is one of the best and biggest. We've got a massive section on our website which we call Survive, which covers every aspect we can possibly think of. And elements of that are considering yourself, your own capabilities and your experience and so on, considering the place and the conditions on the day, knowing the risks and mitigating them as far as you can, making a plan for if things go wrong and agreeing that with others, and knowing what to do in an emergency. That's really important. We'll hear more from more later on that, and basically knowing that you need to call for help rather than diving in and endangering yourself. And another crucial thing is, if you're a swimmer and you know a bit, pass that safety message on to others, obviously leading by example, discussing it with other people, and any way you can educate others is good. Now, the next part of the code is consideration for others. So, landowners obviously are a crucial part of that. The local community, a lot of swim spots are in local villages and so on, and other water users, other land users. So things like considering how crowded it is it a bit too busy? Are there too many people for such a small place? So go somewhere else maybe. And parking, accessing the site, litter, fire, noise, obvious things. Liaise with others and share the place. Perhaps the most obvious example of that is anglers and swimmers can easily share it if swimmers obviously ask the anglers how they can best avoid them, and the anglers keep their lines out of the way of swimmers, but working together to share a place. And following the countryside codes, whichever is appropriate in your nation. So considering others and the environment both go together really, and it's a matter of not doing harm to the environment or others, but actually going further than that and doing things to help landowners, help the community, help the environment. So that's things like picking up litter, whether it's your own or somebody else's, reporting problems or environmental issues to the appropriate organisation or landowner. Do some volunteering, conservation work, join the organisation. Respect the zones. People have been talking about zones. You know, there's different places that are appropriate to swim, different times when you might avoid, and seasons when you might need to be especially careful. So respecting the environment, that's the other one of the three key planks of the code, and they're a very important one. So here, swimmers are asked to look into the place, research it, look at local information, ask in local swim networks, and obviously ask the land manager and see what they say on their website or wherever. And be aware of the potential harm you could do, and don't do it, to the environment, to the habitat, to wildlife, livestock, crops, and more broadly to the planet. And biosecurity, if you're visiting different places, check, clean and dry your equipment to avoid spreading things that shouldn't be spread. And then look at detailed advice. There's much more information around, and again, the Outdoor Swimming Society, we've started putting together a lot more information to help swimmers respect the environment. And we've got a big piece called Swimming Without a Trace, which goes into a lot more detail in advice to swimmers on, again, looking at where they swim and what its characteristics are and what they should be careful about. And some detail about different types of wildlife and habitats, running through all the different sorts of things to consider. I don't need to spell them out, but they're in there. And how best to avoid harming them, where to avoid going, at what times and so on. And again, biosecurity. So, sorry. And just to conclude on that, promoting responsible swimming in all those three ways, or all ways you can really, is a really key thing for OSS. And we're inviting suggestions and contributions and responses from any land managers, safety or conservation organisations that would like to give us that feedback, and quite a few already have. And that will help us improve the code and the other guidance and cover all the issues we really want to do. And it would also be helpful if organisations felt they could indicate some support for the work we're doing in this way and help promote it so that we can get it to go further. So I just wanted to say a little bit more about landowners and swimmers and how they can perhaps engage. And I just wanted to run through a few examples just to give you a flavour of the sort of things that are going on around the country. I gathered some examples at the same time as gathering those videos, some of you will see. And people poured in all sorts of examples of what they're doing locally to try and be responsible and work with landowners and others to basically make things as good as possible for everybody. And so just to give you a flavour, a harbour authority got in touch. They have a busy tidal river with boats and all sorts of things and swimmers, and they wanted to make sure everybody could keep safe. So they invited swimmers to their regular forum and asked for advice on the website, and that dialogue is ongoing. And another example is a lake which used to be a mine, but it's now a nature and recreation park. And swimmers helped with some safety signage. They help encourage other swimmers to respect the zoning, particularly to protect the nature and avoid habitat damage. They also do litter picking and volunteer to do conservation work. There are numerous river spots around the country, traditional places where people swim, which of course, like everywhere, have got more popular. But swimmers are liaising with landowners, picking up litter, influencing visitors about their being responsible in their behaviour and doing their best to help with that, which landowners have definitely said they appreciate, and it helps them quite a bit. There are reservoirs around the place where people swim, and there are many examples, but just to pick one where, like I keep repeating, swimmers do litter picking. They basically do it everywhere they go. It's a thing. you know, these examples, they liaise with local landowners. Perhaps often there's a walk to the reservoir, so there's the way into the land where landowners are affected. So there's examples where people have actually rebuilt dry stone walls as well as doing the more obvious litter picking. And this is even where the water company would prefer that people didn't swim. So I understand what Will was saying in his presentation, but that doesn't, the fact that they perhaps are not supposed to be there doesn't stop them being as responsible and helpful as they possibly can. Another example is an ex-gravel pit where swimmers do various things. They minimise publicity and crowding as best they can influence that. They report antisocial behaviour or environmental damage to the appropriate authorities. Liaise with the landowner. They've been doing litter picking for years, but it's now going to be formalised. They're going to be recognised as proper volunteers with all the backup that goes with that. And they're also going to be continue to be involved as plans for the site develop. There's a canal restoration trust. This is in Norfolk near me. They approached swimmers because they had youth jumping into the canal. It's more like a river than a canal, but they're restoring it because that's the sort of thing they enjoy. They actually welcomed these young people enjoying themselves, but they wanted to just have a bit of help in devising some safety signage. So we worked on safety, some very basic, clear, simple signage, and helped them put stuff on their website. And it's a place where all users are welcomed, and people share the space very, very successfully. Swimmers want to support these trusts and landowners, so they actually join it, pay their membership, and join in with conservation work. So it's actually, you know, very useful both ways for everybody there. And another example has come in of a very popular beach where it's popular with anglers and with swimmers, and there's been incidents where lines have entangled swimmers, and so the swimmers, anglers and the council have been working together on ways to share it safely. So everywhere, as we all know very well, there are increasing numbers, they're enjoying the water in all these different ways. There's more people benefiting, but of course we know there are more negative impacts. And now I'm not trying to suggest that engaging swimmers can actually solve all the problems, far from it, of course not, but I think that it's a really useful thing, and I really hope that this is, I mean, I think we've got a lot of it already, but I'd like to see more. And I think it can help by actual practical helps, literally picking up the litter, which swimmers are very willing to do to make sure they can happily enjoy the place and everybody can enjoy it. That sort of practical thing, or conservation work and so on. Swimmers and swimmer groups can promote responsibility, put out safety messages and spread those quite widely. I mean, to just give you an idea of numbers, there's these 100,000 members, that's just our sort of national membership, but each local swim group, and there's about 300 of those, have varying numbers of members depending on the sort of place. Some have 9,000, some have 1,000. They each hear these messages and they spread them to their family members and so on. So it spreads very widely, but I think it could actually spread even further if landowners, swimmers, safety organisations and local authorities and conservation bodies, if all of us could work together. We've all got a variety of different audiences. We can reach them in different ways, and we can find new ways to reach people. And the problems of antisocial behaviour and littering that we all know about are not actually swimmers' fault, really. I don't think anyone's saying that. It's just that they're happening a lot at water places, because that's where so many people want to go. But we can reach that and try and help together. We can reach swimmers on the sort of very swimming specific things, but we hope we can also reach that wider audience on the whole range of issues relating to the places where we swim. And the breakout room that I'm chairing will talk about these issues of engaging and how we can do it, how it can work, and issues to do with that. So finally, just you won't be able to read this, it's too small, I'm sure, but the slides are going around with the links, and there's, as I say, the Outdoor Swimming Society website has plenty of information for swimmers and for others, and there's the contact details there. There's also the inland access team, which looks at this broad range of issues I've been talking about today. Can be contacted. You can contact me. And I don't need to tell you about the visitor safety group, well, at least I don't need to tell most of you about the visitor safety group guiding principles and website with all the information there is on there. So that's me finished now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imogen. That was great, and great to see a great overview of the work that you're doing. And indeed, you know, for a growth activity like outdoor swimming, I suppose it's like many in the outdoor recreation sector that doesn't necessarily fall in neatly to the national governing body. So it's nice, it's fantastic to see an organisation like yourself providing that advocacy and leadership, and indeed a really good soundboard for VSG and others to engage with. I noted your call for further engagement and support there, and indeed if you once you get breath back from your presentation, you'll see some offers there in the chat from some key organisations looking to engage, and of course we'll share your contact details in the outworkings of this, so people can engage with you separately as well. But of course VSG board and VSG secretariat will continue to engage with you moving forward. So thanks again, Imogen. We're going to pass over now to Carleen McAvoy. Carleen is the Leisure Safety Manager from ROSPA and with the National Water Safety Forum. So are you there, Carleen, okay?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great, okay. So do you want to just queue up your slides there?
Yeah, can you see
That's
them?
great. We can see those, and we can see you as well. Carling's having some broadband issues earlier this morning, so she may disappear, but hopefully her slides will remain. So I'll pass over to you, Carling, and you can make a start. Thanks a million.
Yep, no problem. Hi everyone, and thanks for having me. So as said, my name's Carleen McAvoy, and I'm the Leisure Safety Manager for ROSPA, and also provide the Secretariat services for the National Water Safety Forum and also Water Safety Scotland. So I was asked to speak about the Respect the Water framework. So this framework you know, can fit into the issues that we're talking about today with open water swimming and things like that, but they're also applicable to all water safety issues. So I'm just going to do a little bit about what the Respect the Water is, although I'm sure most of you will have actually heard of it before, why we need it, why we're using it, and then a bit about how to use it. And then obviously there'll be questions for all the speakers later. So just really quickly, I'm sure you all know what ROSPA is and what we stand for. Our mission is for a life free from serious accidental injury, and the National Water Safety Forum, we are the secretariat for that. The forum is a UK voluntary based network which brings together different organisations across the UK with an aim to reduce water related fatalities across the UK. So a little bit about Respect the Water, and I'm sure most of you will have heard about Respect the Water. It was our Allies campaign for a number of years. I think it was set up in around 2013, kind of on the back of ideas of the Fire Kills campaign. And it's now been taken over by the National Water Safety Forum as their specific campaign in water safety for all members of the forum and the other Water Safety Scotland, Water Safety Wales groups. It runs throughout the year. It launched this year in May under the National Water Safety Forum banner, but it does run all year, but particularly through the spring and summer months where we see more activities in the water. But its aim really is to go beyond that coastal framework that has been previously Respect the Water to encompass inland waters and other types of waterways. So one of the key aims of it is also to complement different water safety campaigns, different water safety messages, and different water safety weeks, such as Journey Prevention Week, which we just had last week, a couple of weeks ago, and Maritime Safety Week, which I believe is this week. So it's all really about the slogan and the hashtag of Respect the Water, and providing a consistency. So it aims to give all National Water Safety Forum members or anyone involved in water safety a united and consistent approach to share specific water safety messages, but also with the ability to have very specific ones to what it is that person wants to put out. So it is all sort of online social media at the moment because it's most likely to be effective in delivering safety messages, just because of the world is all about social media at the moment, and it's an ideal way to sort of unify the movement of respect the water. Additionally, I think having it online on things like Twitter with that hashtag, it really makes messaging searchable and importantly shareable, which leads to much bigger audience reach, but it also encourages different audiences, different individuals, different organizations to use the phrase, use the tagline respect the water in their post to spread the word, so that people start thinking, okay, what's this? What's respect the water? What's it all about? So it's a good way to get in and to learn about the messages. So I guess, why do we need the campaign? I know that Will already went through the stats really briefly, but why do we need the campaign? Basically because people accidentally drown in the UK every year. So this chart is accidental water-related fatalities only. The average every year over the past 5 years, the average has been about 300 fatalities a year in the UK. Last year it was 254, which I believe was slightly different from the stats that Will said, but before there's a question on it, it's just to say that when we did the National Water Safety Forum stats, we usually put accidental and natural causes together, and that's why we have a slightly different figure. But importantly, we know that 40% or 4 in 10 of people who sadly lose their life accidentally had really no intention of being in the water. So obviously we're talking a lot about swimming, open water swimming, wild swimming, that kind of thing. And that is really, really important in certain countries, in certain nations, in certain localities. For example, in Scotland, recreational activities, not just swimming, but kayaking, canoeing, etc., actually feature higher than this 40%. But generally across the UK, there is 40% of people who fall into the water while they're, for example, walking, cycling, running, had no intention of being in the water and sadly lose their life. So Respect the Water is a way to bring together these consistent messages to help spread 2 specific messages, which I'll come on to for those people that have no intention of being in the water, but it can also be used for recreational activity use, for example, with swimming or kayaking or yachting, any of those sort of things. So I'm going to move on to basically how to use the campaign. And I think some of you may have been at one of the workshops that RNLI previously held for the National Water Safety Forum, but it's just to give a sort of overview, a very quick overview of how to use the campaign. So as I said, it's all about social media and it's all about these posts. So the one that you can see here from Swim England, it has a very, very simple message: heading to the seaside, here are the safety tips, and there's a link to learn about it, but it has the hashtag respect the water. So the campaign really is for asking members to use basically a picture, because it's more effective, using the logo and using the respect the water hashtag along with their safety image to sort of draw people into what is respect the water and what are the key messages, and adding like videos, images to show the activity. The risk that you're focusing on really helps. So in this particular scenario, it's all about the beach and asking people to swim between the red and yellow flags, but of course that can be moved to whatever activity is you're concentrating on. There are different logo versions that can be used, and I do recommend anyone from this webinar to go and get the brand guidelines, which there's a link to, which I'll talk about, to use this. It's free. You can just download the logos and put them on your assets and follow the sort of safety messaging advice. But obviously there's a little bit about blue and white and when to use them, and that's all in the guidelines about how to actually use the logos appropriately. But one of the key aspects of this campaign, you'll see in the top right picture, hopefully here, there's a respect the water hashtag, but there's 2 logos, and this obviously can have a lot more logos, but that's really what this campaign is all about. It's all about the collaboration. It's a way to use the hashtag under one consistent banner, but also to endorse this banner and use other organizations in your own to show endorsement for the campaign, and that you're endorsed in this consistent messaging across the UK. And as I say, the branding guidelines go into all this in a lot more detail, so I won't bore you with how to use logos or anything like that. But I do want to just quickly run through what the key 3 core messages that we're asking people to use in Respect the Water. So the first one is the specific safe behaviour that you're wanting to get across, and this will be different from each organisation or for each individual, whether you're a landowner, an activity provider, a search and rescue. It's all about the message that you want. So these are just some examples. That could be wear a personal flotation device if you're kayaking. It could be take your phone to the beach. You can read these other ones, or it could be useful for this one. Check the outdoor swimming code with the other messages and respect the water. So there's these different specific safe behaviour messages that you can use with the addition of the other two messages, which I'll just quickly run through. So the first one is all about looking after yourself and your family, and this is the key message that the Respect the Water and the forum want used, and it's if you fall into water, or if you get in trouble in the water, then float to live. And I'm sure we all seen the RNOI videos, and we've seen the different ways to do that, but it's essentially leaning back, using your arms and legs to help you float, and then to get control of your breathing before you call for help or swimming to safety. And that's useful in a number of different activities, even things like hill walking, orienteering. There's lots of water. I mean, I live in Scotland, there's water everywhere, so it's useful for a number of different activities, even horse riding, activities that people necessarily wouldn't think about. And the second one, what to do in an emergency. And that's basically if you see someone in trouble, then to call 999 or 112, and at the coast, ask for the Coast Guard, and at inland water, ask for the fire service, and that is consistent across the whole of the UK, so there's no concerns there about differences. And these are just examples I wanted to share. So I mean, this framework is really open for anyone, any organisation to use, with those two key messages and then the one specific message that you can use. So for example, Water Safety Scotland have used it and said, you know, follow the water safety code. They have a specific, quite long water safety code that they want people to use in Scotland, so they're letting people go towards that. We've got one from the National Water Safety Forum about lifeguarded beaches, one here from ROSPA about trouble in the water, what to do, and then one that I took from Scottish Water on their Twitter feed that was really in support of Drowning Prevention Week, but letting people know about the dangers of swimming in reservoirs and respect the water and what to do in an emergency. So there's different examples, and one of the best ways, one of the designs that the forum is suggesting you use is the shield, which I think was really popular with RNOI, and that basically, this is just some guidance, and as I say, this is all in the guidance that you can actually view yourself, but it's an example of using the consistency of the Respect the Water logo. You got 3 messages which you can use, and then you have collaborative logos that you can put on, and it's a really effective way of getting your message through. And again, these are available to download, and then for your own logos to go on, your own messages to go on, etc. So it's a full toolkit that you can download. And I think this QR code, if you scan, takes you directly to the National Water Safety Forum Respect the Water page, where you can actually get that branding guideline document. You can download it, you can download all the logos, and you can go into a lot of detail about positioning of the logo and things like that. But the things that we would suggest that you do is to start using the Respect the Water tag with your messaging. It helps promote these key messages and also helps to provide that consistency that I think we've lacked within the UK previously. Sign up for updates on the campaigns and key dates. You know, as I said, the National Water Safety Forum have just taken this over from RNOI this year, so this is the first year it's been used. It's likely in the future that it's going to become more in depth and there's going to be a lot more to it, but useful ways to sign up, and there's links I think that will be shared at the end of this. Of course, you can email Respect the Water at National Water Safety Forum, and that's mostly for support on bespoke campaigns. So if there's something totally different that you want to do and you want to use the logo, you want to use the Respect the Water branding, you can email them and ask, you know, or say that you want to use it for this purpose, and there'll be a group that will look into that and give approval or suggestions for you to do that. And then obviously you can download those branding guidelines and logo and just put your logo on it and start spreading the message. And that, I think, is basically me. So I'll just hand back over to Chris. It was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but as I say, most of that information really is in the branding guidelines, and it's just a really useful way to bring together essentially messaging within the UK.
That's great, Carleen. Thank you very much. A really useful resource there for everybody to make use of as we go forward. It's always great to have those well thought through messages, well presented and easy to use. We will be, you're right, helping share links after the webinar with e-zines and so on, and presentations generated a few questions in chat there from folk as well. So that's great. Listen, that's us completed our round of presentations. Thank you very much to all those who have presented. It's been great to see plenty of conversation going on in the meeting chat. Some questions raised, many questions already answered, so it's probably showing the value of VSG within the chat forum itself. People answering questions there, or indeed offering to go into further detailed conversation offline as well, which is great. So thanks very much to those who have been contributing to the chat forum, particularly Dave Liddy, who's been answering furiously the questions. So your keyboard must be on fire there, Dave. So thank you very much for that. I probably do have time. Before we go to the breakout rooms, I probably do have time for one question outside what's already been asked in the chat, and if anybody wanted to raise a hand quickly, I could we could put that to the speakers. Graham, did you want to ask that question to the group? You just put up a Graham Close.
Chris,
okay.
Hi. Sorry, I didn't have my headphone on when I've just been scrambling around trying to plug in and everything.
You're okay, Graham. Thanks very much.
Sorry about that. I just put something on the chat there, so if you're not looking at the chat, you won't know it. But basically, it's just a statement, a comment, really, that the problem isn't the organised swimmer like Imogen's group. The problem is the teenager on the hot day, who may or may not be able to swim, just hot, jumps in. And then it's the media scrum that follows that. That is really, really difficult for people to deal with. And also, if you do encourage swimming, there's the HSE's sort of expectation that you'll run it like a swimming pool, which is very problematic in a natural environment, because obviously it's written for swimming pools, and trying to comply with all of that is really difficult. So I guess that's what one of the breakout rooms will possibly be looking at the legal side. But that is one of the problems, and really, if VSG could, it'd be good if they could lobby the HSE to maybe put out a position statement on something like that, which they have done in the past. They've done position statements on things like climbing trees and so on. So that would be really helpful and might assure landowners as to the extent of what the expectation is in terms of management if they were encouraging this activity. Does that cover it, Chris? Sorry, that was
no, thank you. And that latter point is noted. We would certainly take that to VSG board. Point well made, Graham. So no, thank you very much for that. Jeanette, did you want to come in quickly on an answer to that one just before we move to the breakout rooms?
Yeah, sure, Chris. It was it was just very simply to say in the guidance. So Will had actually put up around the tending to investigation or tending not to investigation. That is drawn from the HSE guidance. In terms of open water, well, access to water. So we have tried to link in with that, but as Chris says, we'll obviously take this up at the board meeting as well, following this webinar.
Great, Jeanette, thank you very much. Mark Taylor, I see a hand up. I'll maybe take one more question from Mark, and then before we go to the breakout rooms. Mark, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, sorry, my camera's on. Yeah, I mean, this is all new to me, so I found this conversation very enlightening. And we're just dealing with a death in reservoir just a week or so ago, and I guess, Matt, as I'm looking at this and trying to establish, we have a no swimming policy, which we are looking to reinforce at the moment, but we are open, I think, to hearing different views, which is the purpose of me attending today. And I've been very impressed by the quality of the presentations. Imogen, I think, said some really things from this takeaway. I guess my question is, we to the comment about the Hot Waters Day person, which is more or less what happened in a recent event. I guess my concern is when we see the people really, really well prepared, and I'm an ex-commercial diver, and here's some of the measures they take. I think, well, that's fine. These are operating assets in reservoirs, so there are other hazards. But then I think the challenge that we're trying to face is balance that off when young people see the properly prepared person and then think it's just okay to swim, and then go in the water unprepared, and we have exactly that. And if they've been drinking and things like that, that's the issue that we're really trying to deal with. So I think it's more of a comment than the question. I'd just like to, because I might have to drop off soon before the groups, and I just really want to say, look, put my email address there. I'm happy for anyone to come and speak to me. I want to learn more, because as we look to manage this risk, because end of the day, I think the common piece here is we don't want families to have tragic events where they've lost a loved one, and that's something we can all agree on. So I'm happy to hear from anyone. So on that, Chris, I'm going to have to apologise and drop off the call. But please, my email address is in the chat. If anybody would like to reach out to me from any of the groups, I'm happy to have an open conversation and to learn more. So thank you, Chris.
No, thank you, Mark. That's a really valuable contribution. Thanks for your kind words about the event. But indeed, more importantly, it's great that it's added value to you, added value to your organisation, and we've created a connection between you and other organisations as well. It sums up really what VSG is all about. So thanks for that contribution, Mark. Thanks very much. So listen, I'm going to draw the Q&A in this format to a close. Elizabeth, maybe if you want to put up the slide there regards to breakout rooms, thanks. So we have 4 breakout rooms which you've all selected through registration, or indeed maybe confirmed with Jane during the presentations. If you'll be automatically transported to a breakout room very shortly. You don't have to do anything, it'll just happen and you'll appear in the breakout room, and again when the breakout room is complete you'll just be transported back into plenary. Okay folks, you've all been transported back into the main plenary at breakneck speed there, so I just give you a moment just to, you can turn your cameras back off again now and relax, and we'll just give people a few moments to come back in, just as we give the breakout room chairs a moment to again catch their thoughts and sum up maybe 1 or 2 points that we'll come to in a second. Jane is going to share a little survey within the chat room, I think. There we go, just on cue. So if you wouldn't mind, we really value feedback on this webinar. It literally take you 2 minutes to fill that in. Just click on the link. Nobody else will see it. It's an anonymous survey, so nobody else will see it. So just take a few seconds to fill that in would be great. Because if you're like me, if we send it to you after the event, you'll never fill it in. So please just take a few moments. That feedback really guides what we do moving forward. So in terms of the breakout rooms formats, as you keep filling that in as we're talking, you can multitask. We're going to just go to a little summary from some of the breakout rooms. So first breakout room 1 was chaired by Will Kirstein, and you were talking about landowners transitioning on water access. Will, can I come to you just for a brief comment?
Yeah, I think there were 2 things that struck me really from our conversations. One is landowners we're aware of the pressure and the desire for people to use water, but what is difficult for us to balance is the needs of the responsible swimmers. Let's call everyone who's an OSS member a responsible swimmer, and the needs and the actions of the irresponsible members of the public who might be visiting our sites for the first time, who have no experience with reservoirs, rivers, etc., and how do you provide access for one and not the other with copycat mentality and that sort of thing. The other key thing, and it was Susie, I think it was a helpful conversation with Susie from the OSS, is actually a swimmer carries responsibility, but they don't carry any liability necessarily for anything that happens to them, be that a swimmer or a person in the water. So from an organisation's perspective, and I think it's just helpful for swim groups to perhaps think about this going forwards, the organisation generally is worried about its liability to its visitors, and really that's what we're trying to cover. So it might be helpful for swimmers to think about, okay, well actually how can we help you manage your liabilities, if you like, and that's sort of where we got to. So it's an interesting discussion. I think the guidance does help, and it will certainly help you decide whether managed access or wild swimming access is right for you. Jane has very kindly agreed to send the link round from the HSC website after this to everybody. So that's the piece of text that says this doesn't apply to open water lakes, if you like, but it does apply to a managed swim zone. So do have a read after that, and thank you very much for everyone's engagement.
Thank you, Will. That's great. Thank you. We're going to go to breakout room 2 next, which was chaired by Carleen McAvoy. Are you there? Okay, Carleen?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, so you were talking about connecting organisations to help you better understand practice in water safety.
Yeah, so there's lots of different discussions, but basically the couple of main points to take away is that it's quite difficult, I suppose, to know what's happening locally, and nationally not so difficult, but at a local level it's difficult to actually find local groups, etc. But there is a list on the National Water Safety Forum website, and there was also discussion about how best to actually engage with local authorities and councils, and discussion on how to do that, because it's not an easy thing. And lastly, a little bit of discussion really on how best to advise landowner water companies to manage risk within their area, in particular about swimming, but not really the responsible swimmer, more the ones that don't really know anything about it and are just kind of going into the reservoir or the area to swim. And that was really about it. Thank you.
That's great. Caroline, thank you very much. Next was breakout room 3. I was in breakout 3 as well. Great conversation there. That was chaired by Imogen Radford, and that was talking about ways to engage swimmers. Imogen, I'll pass over to you for a brief comment. You're just on mute there, Imogen, sorry.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, quite a wide-ranging conversation in the short time. Basically, recognising that swimming's popularity is here to stay, really, and that was coming from landowners, not from me and other swimmers in the group. That there is a range of knowledge, people who don't even realise they don't know things, people who do know things, people who are less familiar, and the needing to target that information to all those different sorts of groups, and also looking at different sorts of water bodies. And we talked a bit about ways to do that. I think that's about all I can say to summarise it, really. I think it was a positive discussion. We think things are moving in the direction of working together to make this work well for everybody.
Thanks, Imogen, and I would echo that indeed. Thank you very much. So lastly then, in breakout room 4 was chaired by Jeanette Roberts, and you were talking about the motivation and risk mitigations, Jeanette.
Yeah, again, a very positive discussion, which was kind of helped by having a number of swimmers in the breakout room as well, to give that kind of personal message. But what we did have was a video of kind of the thinking process that swimmers go through before accessing the water, which I think was really interesting, and kind of it demonstrates that there is this responsible swimmer out there, but similar, I suppose, to the other breakout rooms, that there is this spectrum of we've got the very responsible, and then we've got the others who are just going into the water. I think one of the key kind of discussions we had around was around the shared use of the water, and certainly where you've got boats and powered vessels, these sort of things, that how the swimmer is acting responsibility for their own safety, but what happens around other people using the water, and this potential conflict between kind of motorized vehicles, fast moving rowing boats, these sort of things. So we definitely, the conversation, there were 2 E's that came out of this: engagement and education. Engagement was the first one, and about let's get the different groups talking to each other. And then when we started talking about the kind of the less experienced people, the ones who just go in for a swim and don't really know what they're going into or that they're going to encounter, how do we educate them? How do we actually make contact with these younger people to make sure that they're aware of the risks and what it feels like to go in the water, all these sort of things. So we had some really nice examples about some of the education pieces that have been done with young people as well, which was really beneficial.
Okay, great, Jeanette. Thank you very much. So yeah, delighted to hear there was such good conversation in all the breakout rooms, and what seems to be a really positive tone as well to all the breakout rooms too, which is excellent. And I think Jeanette's point is really well made there, about the benefit in this workshop of having our to be very crude, our land managers in one division, and our swimmers in another division, and the merging of minds in the middle has been really pleasing to see throughout the webinar, and certainly maybe something for VSG to consider in future events. It's been really valuable. We ran a similar approach with wild trails and mountain biking a number of years ago, and that was quite a similar environment to this. So that's been really beneficial. So thank you to everybody who's contributed so articulately and professionally within that. That's been really useful. So quite amazingly, I've managed to keep my first webinar to time, which is quite an achievement. I'm quite proud of myself there. So would just to remind you that there will be plenty of post-webinar resources available via the VSG website. We'll trigger that via a VSG an easing to everybody who's attended this. You'll hopefully get that, if not today, definitely tomorrow. So Jane will be furiously pulling everything together there. So videos of the main event, the presentation slides, videos of the breakout rooms, and indeed some of the links there that people have talked about. I would like to once again thank all the presenters who have presented today. I know from doing presentations myself, it's not the 10 minutes you do in the session. There's quite a lot of work and thought goes into those in advance, and indeed there was many pre-meetings and lots of emails flying back and forth to organise this for all the presenters. So folks, thank you very much indeed for that. That's been really useful. And I would also like to thank my colleagues. Don't be under any illusion that I did anything to organise this event. Thank you to my colleagues Elizabeth and Jane, who do all the work behind the scenes, making everything you see on screen work, both in terms of technology, but also the curating of all the ideas to get those to flow together and getting the right people in the right place. So thanks both for that. I'm really delighted to say, whilst we will continue webinars, because webinars have been a success and feedback has come across from that, but delighted to say we will be hosting our RSPB and Natural Resource Wales. Andy Stokes and Dave Liddy, who will be known to many of you, will be hosting a workshop in North Wales there in September, the 7th and 8th of September. We'll be providing more information about that in the coming weeks. But you might want to mark that in your diary. You might actually get to meet people and maybe have a beer or a wine and a conversation. And the glory of those events is, the challenge of webinars is once we press the red button at the end of this, we all disappear back into our various environments, and those small conversations sometimes get lost. There's actually loads of small conversation going on in the chat pane at the moment, which is brilliant to see. And in fact, actually, the chat pane in this event has probably been as active as any event I've been to. So thank you again to the delegates for sharing ideas, sharing email addresses, following up with queries, both in the chat forum and offline after the event. Thank you very much. We've covered a broad topic there. We probably haven't covered it all, but please do engage with us in terms of the VSG website. Please do engage with us via the VSG Slack forum as well, if we can continue conversation there. The guidance that we've talked about will be available online on the VSG website. A lot of it will be behind the VSG members paywall. So if you haven't got your login, if you're a VSG member and you haven't got your login, please get in contact with Jane in the Secretariat. She'll be able to sort you out with that. Okay, well, I think I've covered all the housekeeping. There's no more slides there, Elizabeth. I don't think. No, thank you. Great. So that's everything. Enjoy the rest. Enjoy your lunch and enjoy the rest of today. And thanks once again for everybody for their involvement and engagement. Cheerio. All the best.